Yeah, I'll start. I'll read a couple. Nothing I see means anything. The reason this is so is that I see nothing, and nothing has no meaning. It is necessary that I recognize this, that I may learn to see. What I think I see now is taking the place of vision. I must let it go, realizing it has no meaning, so that vision may take its place. I have given what I see all the meaning it has for me. I have judged everything I look upon. What's that?
Read lesson 47.
Okay.
The whole lesson.
The whole lesson? Right on. Oh, okay. Happy to. Lesson 47. God is the strength in which I trust. If you are trusting in your own strength, you have every reason to be apprehensive, anxious, and fearful. What can you predict or control? What is there in you that can be counted on? What would give you the ability to be aware of all the facets of any problem and to resolve them in such a way that only good can come of it? What is there in you that gives you the recognition of the right solution and the guarantee that it will be accomplished? Of yourself, you can do none of these things. To believe that you can is to put your trust where trust is unwarranted, and to justify fear, anxiety, depression, anger, and sorrow. Who can put his faith in weakness and feel safe? Yet, who can put his faith in strength and feel weak? God is your safety in every circumstance. His voice speaks for him in all situations and in every aspect of all situations, telling you exactly what to do to call upon his strength and his protection. There are no exceptions because God has no exceptions. And the voice which speaks for him thinks as he does. Today, we will try to reach past your own weakness to the source of real strength. 4 or 5 minute practice periods are necessary today, and longer and more frequent ones are urged. Close your eyes and begin as usual by repeating the idea for the day. Then spend a minute or two in searching for situations in your life which you have invested with fear, dismissing each one by telling yourself, God is the strength in which I trust. Now try to slip past all concerns related to your own sense of inadequacy. Ooh. Now try to slip past all concerns related to your own sense of inadequacy. It is obvious that any situation that causes you concern is associated with feelings of inadequacy. For otherwise, you would believe that you could deal with the situation successfully. It is not by trusting yourself that you will gain confidence, but the strength of God in you is successful in all things. The recognition of your own frailty is a necessary step in the correction of your errors, but it is hardly a sufficient one in giving you the confidence which you need and to which you are entitled. You must also gain an awareness that confidence in your real strength is fully justified in every respect and in all circumstances. In the latter phase of the practice period, try to reach down into your mind to a place of real safety. You will recognize that you have reached it if you feel a sense of deep peace, however briefly. Let go all the trivial things that churn and bubble on the surface of your mind and reach down and below them to the kingdom of heaven. There is a place in you where there is perfect peace. There is a place in you where nothing is impossible. There is a place in you where the strength of God abides. During the day, repeat the idea often. Use it as your answer to any disturbance. Remember that peace is your right because you are giving your trust to the strength of God.
Good.
Thank you.
Reach down, reach down. You have to get beyond the superficial level of thinking, where thoughts that seem to be thought, that seem to appear as conscious activity, preoccupy the mind. You have to reach down past all that, go deeper and reach out. You'll feel it. It's like when you're in a swimming pool and you're on the top and it's warm on the top, the sun's shining, and then when you take a breath and you go down to the bottom, it gets a bit cooler. You can feel it. You can feel something change. You call it temperature. In your consciousness, in your mind, in your thinking mind, in your associative mind, which you're now attempting to transcend or descend or whatever you want to call that. Being encouraged to reach out, to push, to feel, to leave behind the sense of the superficial and the surface and to go deeper. You don't know what the deeper is. Try not to fall into the trap of thinking that you know how it is to go deeper in your mind. Or you would simply live there. You would abide there in that place where peace and love and joy surround you all the time. In the recognition that of myself I can do nothing. All help is given you through the Holy Spirit, or the Spirit of wholeness, to help you plumb those depths, to help you reach, to push, to expand your mind to such a point where the superficial and the surface seems to just fade away, and you sort of fall into a beautiful cradle or comfort, or I don't even know how to talk about it, like what you would wrap a baby in, like a comfortable, those things that mothers wear around, you know, a swaddle. And it really feels like that. There's this dropping into something that has this such a mothering kind of beauty about it. It's like this warm, and you drop into it, and there's this deep peace. And of course, the first thing that happens when you experience it is you examine it, which takes you out of the state. The tendency is to want to look at it and go, "Ooh, what's this? Is this what they're talking about in the course?" And the next thing you know, you're back in your thinking mind, thinking about what it is that you just experienced, rather than actually staying in the experience. Like that, where you just automatically go to that place in your mind that previously you've been unaware of, but it's been there all along. Once you experience it once, you will know where it is. And this is the part you can't teach anyone. You will know how to get there in your own mind. You will know where that little dropping in point is. You will know how to access it in the stillness of your mind, in a willingness and a collaborative kind of venture with God through the Spirit to find that deeper place. It's what you're looking for. In your meditation, a lot of people meditate, and I know this because I've been taught meditation by many, many people over the years, until finally I realized that you can't be taught meditation, and I allowed the action of meditation to occur naturally through the Spirit under the guidance of my teacher, Ted. He always used to say, "I can't teach you this last bit. You've kind of got to trip over it in your own mind and figure it out for yourself." There's just this working at it that you can do, where you're doing the workbook lessons, you're putting in the prayerful efforts in the times when you're confronted with your own nonsense and all of these things, and you're thinning the veil, you're thinning the awareness of consciousness, you're sort of letting go of that allegiance with consciousness, so that your mind, which has had this kind of bungee cord attached to it, keeping you in the superficial level, that cord gets kind of thinner and thinner and thinner, and you can stretch it further and further and further. And if you can kind of like reach out and really push, you'll find that there is actually no cord. There's nothing preventing you from experiencing the peace of God, other than the idea that you might lose yourself, or you might die, or you might go insane, or any of those sorts of things. And that's perfect. When you start to experience that, it's like, holy shit, I'm losing my mind. That's actually a good sign, even though your ego is going to use it to terrify you with. This is where you have to take on board the idea in all solemnness that, hey, I'm an adventurer. That guy that sits in the ice, what's his name? The ice guy? Wim Hof, yeah. It's like, this is your Wim Hof moment. The cameras are on there watching you sitting on the glacier, and you've told them you're going to sit there for 24 hours, no frostbite, no nothing, just in a pair of underwear or a pair of whatever it was, you know, and this is it. This is your moment. Every moment is that moment. Every moment seen rightly is that opportunity, not just in a Zoom meeting, not just when you're doing these lessons. Every moment that you're reminded of your purpose. It doesn't take 50 years to become a master meditator or a master teacher or any of that sort of stuff. And until you have an experience, what is it you're trying to do? Avoid the experience. It's deliberate. Jesus tells you it's not that the peace of God is being withheld from you, it's that you don't want it. It's not that the experience isn't being held out to you all the time. It's that you don't want it. There is still something in the world you value. Your reputation, your identity, your friends, family, possessions, money, stupid stuff. There's a place in life, in this physical life that we call death. And at that point, you don't have a second to give two shits about anything. You don't have a say in it. You don't have a say in it. Now, let that be this moment and go beyond it. Take a step beyond that idea of the finality of death. How do I do that? I see myself dead now. I look at it without any blinkers on. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen today. It could happen in the middle of this Zoom meeting. The lady upstairs from my work who just opened up a massage business, her and her friend dropped dead last week in the middle of or the week before last in the middle of a massage. While she's doing the massage, massive heart attack, collapsed on the floor. I bet she wasn't expecting that. But there is no death. That's not, like the illusion of it is one thing. But in your mind, you can use that. In your mind, look at the limitation, look at the idea of mortality. Face it. Every Zen teaching will teach you that once you face the fear of death, it's one of the things in the course, the third block to peace, fear of death. Once you face the fear of death, you're never afraid of anything. I had a young lady in my studio this week getting a tattoo, and she told me that her husband hung himself in their bedroom from the ceiling fan, hung himself from the ceiling, and was found by their 3.5-year-old son dangling there. He did it while he was in the middle of a meeting, online meeting like this, with his mother and his sister, so they could watch. The girl said to me, who was getting the tattoo, she said it brought me face to face with death and the meaninglessness of it. She wasn't even spiritual. She was just a normal sort of everyday kind of girl. Probably played hockey and whatever. She was only early 20s. And she said it brought me face to face with the meaninglessness of death and life without any kind of purpose, life without any kind of thing, because she saw that in her husband, that he felt like he had no purpose. It's like we have a purpose. But she felt incredibly liberated. She said, I've seen death. She said, I've seen what it is. She said, I'm not afraid of it anymore. She didn't care less. And she was adamant. She said, I don't care what I do. I don't care now. She said, I have no fear. I don't care about anything. And I thought, that's so awesome. Not that it had to happen that way, but that she realized that out of it rather than finding a grievance in it. She used it for something that actually benefited her, even though it was horrific in its playings out, So the awakening, the action of mind awakening is occurring everywhere automatically and naturally now. Automatically and naturally. It's a beautiful thing. It's not the first experience of things that I've had in recent years that people have just automatically begun looking at things from the point of view of liberation and freedom and life. And it's because of the work we're doing, because of the resurrection, because of everything that's going on around the globe, consciously as a conscious effort, which in our own conscious efforts, we have to maintain and push forward within that idea of getting out of our comfort zone, getting out of that superficial level where we are actually addicted to our thoughts. And that's all it is. It's an addiction. I want my thoughts because they keep me comfortable. Even my horrible ones, even my horrible thoughts make me feel connected to the identity of who I think I am, rather than stepping into that unknown in the acceptance of the fact that it's not who I am at all. Only God can show me the truth of myself. But the awakening is occurring around the world. There's a speed up going on. I was just walking through my shopping center this morning, which was really beautiful, and I saw Brother Dean there having coffee with someone who he just met or just met last week, and this was their second meetup, having coffee at Gloria Jean's, reading aloud the 20-minute book, the two of them, in Gloria Jean's, discussing There Is No World, discussing the whole thing. And I sat down and I had a half a cup of coffee with them. And I was very much aware of all the ears pricked up at all the other booths and tables within hearing vicinity. And Dean talks quite loudly and with much excitement. So it's like there's this whole thing going on. So our own efforts contribute. Our own efforts contribute to the whole thing. If you think that this is actually only some kind of individual thing, some kind of thing, you'd be very much mistaken. It's like Jesus says, the miracle affects people, situations, and events of which you're not even aware. But yet we are here to learn to be miracle-minded specifically. We're pursuing a very, very disciplined sense of transformation where we are engaging with the cause and effect relationship of our thinking on a moment-by-moment basis. And we're holding ourselves accountable to it, and hopefully we're beginning to have the results of doing that, which is shifting consciousness. Yes, wow, and thank you. Close your eyes for a second. Out loud with your eyes closed, say the word yes. Say the word yes. Say the word yes. Doug, say the word yes. Anna. Tina. Feel the vibration in the word as you say it. Feel yourself say it. Yes. Say it again. Yes. Knowing that that yes is the only applicable response to everything. Wow and thank you, of course, can follow. But that yes is the only applicable response to anything asked of you, to every situation presented, in the full trust and faith that there is nothing occurring that is not of the will of God for your own greater good. You may not like the way it's presented, but that doesn't mean it's not for your own greater good. It simply means that you have imposed your will over God's will, and you're fearful to let it go because you think you're going to lose something of yourself in that exchange. But you have to remember your goal. What is my goal? My goal is enlightenment. My goal is God. My goal is peace, perfect peace. My goal is to get my ass out of this continuum, awaken from this dream, release my inner light. Yes. George Harrison, yes is surrender. Yes is surrender. The things you think you can't say yes to are the things that are going to open you up to a greater variance of your own ability to perceive the presence of God in your life. I'll say yes. I have no clue how I'm going to do that, but I'll just say yes and I'll let it be miraculous. I'll just say yes. And that yes has to be true in the heart, and I'll let it be a miracle because I have no clue how to accomplish that, Lord. Because of myself, as you just read in lesson 47, of myself I can do nothing. Of myself I can do nothing. But the power of God is within me, and by that power I shall be sustained. I shall be carried over all obstacles seamlessly and effortlessly. All things of the Spirit will flow through me and around me and make my way simple and easy and pleasant. That's going to take a leap of faith. Everything is a leap of faith. Unless a man liveth by faith alone, he shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. By faith alone. As soon as you think you got an idea about it, you're screwed. The best place is the fallback place. So I choose second place to gain the first. Second place is, I have no clue. I'm going to take my hands off the wheel and I'm going to let God drive this bus that I call my life. Take my hands off the wheel. I'm going to let God paddle my canoe. This thing called life, God's in charge. I'm just letting go, and I'm going to trust the universe. Anna, read lesson 44 in full, please.
Okay. God is the light in which I see. Today we are continuing the idea for yesterday, adding another dimension to it. You cannot see in darkness, and you cannot make light. You can make darkness and then think you see in it, but light reflects life and is therefore an aspect of creation. Creation and darkness cannot coexist, but light and life must go together, being but different aspects of creation. In order to see, you must recognize that light is within, not without. You do not see outside yourself, nor is the equipment for seeing outside you. An essential part of this equipment is the light that makes seeing possible. It is with you always, making vision possible in every circumstance. Today we are going to attempt to reach that light. For this purpose, we will use a form of exercise which has been suggested before and which we will utilize increasingly. It is a particularly difficult form for the undisciplined mind and represents a major goal of mind training. It requires precisely what the untrained mind lacks. Yet this training must be accomplished if you are to see. Have at least 3 practice periods today, each lasting 3 to 5 minutes. A longer time is highly recommended, but only if you find the time slipping by with little or no sense of strain. The form of practice we will use today is the most natural and easy one in the world for the trained mind, just as it seems to be the most unnatural and difficult for the untrained mind. Your mind is no longer wholly untrained. You are quite ready to learn the form of exercise we will use today, but you may find that you will encounter strong resistance. The reason is very simple. While you practice in this way, you leave behind everything that you now believe and all the thoughts that you have made up. Properly speaking, this is the release from hell. Yet perceived through the ego's eyes, it is the loss of identity and a descent into hell. If you can stand aside from the ego by ever so little, you will have no difficulty in recognizing that its opposition and its fears are meaningless. You might find it helpful to remind yourself from time to time that to reach light is to escape from darkness. Whatever you may believe to the contrary, God is the light in which you see. You are attempting to reach him. Begin the practice period by repeating today's idea with your eyes open and close them slowly, repeating the idea several times more. Then try to sink into your mind, letting go every kind of interference and intrusion by quietly sinking past them. Your mind cannot be stopped in this unless you choose to stop it. It is merely taking its natural course. Try to observe your passing thoughts without involvement and slip quietly by them. While no particular approach is advocated for this form of exercise, what is needful in a sense of the importance of what you are doing. Its inestimable value to you and an awareness that you are attempting something very holy. Salvation is your happiest accomplishment. It is also the only one that has any meaning, because it is the only one that has any real use to you at all. If resistance rises in any form, pause long enough to repeat today's idea, keeping your eyes closed unless you are aware of fear. In that case, you will probably find it more reassuring to open your eyes briefly. Try, however, to return to the exercises with eyes closed as soon as possible. If you are doing the exercises correctly, you should experience some sense of relaxation and even a feeling that you are approaching, if not actually entering into light. Try to think of light formless and without limit as you pass by the thoughts of this world. And do not forget that they cannot hold you to the world unless you give them the power to do so. Throughout the day, repeat the idea often, with eyes open or closed as seems better to you at the time. But do not forget. Above all, be determined not to forget today.
Good. Those exercises where we push past our thoughts. Right? Again, there's this idea of movement, of pushing or reaching out or going beyond. It's an action that occurs in the mind. Now, most of you guys should be at the last lessons if you've been doing this for a while, or you should have done those last lessons. In the last lessons where we say God is and then we cease to speak, that ceasing to speak is holding the mind in silent readiness to hear. The ceasing to speak is holding the mind in silent readiness to hear. It's kind of like a respectful stance, a respectful position, a willing position, a place that you take in the mind where you are waiting for something that is going to speak to you of the truth of yourself, or perhaps reveal it in an experience. It doesn't matter how it's transferred. It'll be perfect for you. So in meditation, which we're going to do a little bit later on, I want you to try and get a sense of sinking down in your mind, as if your mind has like a little mezzanine floor there somehow, and you're just like stepping down into it or reaching down into it. Right? It can't really be taught. You kind of feel it. You feel it within yourself. It's a very subtle kind of frequency. There's this little kind of boom, this little kind of twist, a little something that occurs, and you'll recognize it. The first time you recognize it, you'll be like, what the hell just happened in my mind? I didn't know I could do that in my mind. You'll feel like a superhero. It's like you've got an extra ability going on in there. Right? All you will have previously known up until that little kadunk, that little dropping in or dropping down moment, all you will have previously known will be up for speculation. It'll be null and void. Everything you've learned, everything you've taught yourself since being a little child, a baby, whatever, it'll be like, hang on a minute, there's something else going on here. And you won't have the benefit of doubt. You won't be able to doubt it. It may not yet be, it's like when Jesus said in that lesson, if not actually entering directly into light, you may not actually enter directly into light, because that takes a second. Right? And at first you're going to react to the kadunk, the dropping down into consciousness. You're going to react to it in a way where you want to observe it and see what just happened in your own thinking, because it's never happened before. It's just like something bizarre, or maybe it has happened before to you, but it's just something bizarre and something seemingly unnatural, but it'll feel natural. It's like the first time you try a new food, or the first time you do anything, you're like, wow, what is this? What's this flavor? What? Immediately you want to analyze it. It's like Vegemite. What is this Vegemite? What are these Tim Tam biscuits? Right? So you have this reaction. Now the mind training is to try to get you to silence that part of your mind that wants to engage with that reactive examining part. Right? So when you do lesson 10, for example, which is one of my favorites, my thoughts do not mean anything, right? My thoughts do not mean anything. What you're doing is training your mind to let go of the engagement with your thinking. You're accepting, hang on, this doesn't mean anything. Why would I keep listening to this kind of thinking? It means nothing. Let me be still instead and listen to the truth. Now that dropping down, that feeling of being like falling back into a comfortable armchair, or whatever you want to equate it with, that's in everybody. I find it's always helpful, or at least it was helpful for me in the beginning. I experienced it once, and then it was quite some time before I could experience it again. My ego was very cunning after that and kept me like away from it, and always had an excuse why I couldn't sit for a long period of time and meditate. Luckily, we did light meditation at the healing center, and Ted used to help facilitate that dropping down. And we were standing there one day with our eyes closed, like there was probably 20 or 30 of us in a group, and the music was playing, and I was in the middle. Usually I would play the music. I'd already had revelation, so I wasn't too concerned about what was going on in the circle. I was just done, you know. But I was playing the music, and usually I would be off to the side and just opening my mind and whatever. But I still had my own transformation to complete. I still have all this stuff. I mean, even still today, you know, like, you're not perfect or you wouldn't be here. But I remember standing there, and Ted was in front of me, and you guys will see this tomorrow. Ted was in front of me, and I had my eyes closed, and all of a sudden I felt this energy in the middle of my face that no one touched me or anything. I felt this energy in the middle of my face, and it went down and it went up. And I opened my eyes, sensing like there was somebody near, or someone, I mean, everybody was around me. And there's Ted doing this, down and up in my face. I could feel the energy of it, you know, like that. And he was getting me to let go of my thinking and simply feel. but he was able to transfer that energy. He was able to transfer light, you know, and there was quite often much comment around the community that he had supernatural powers, which of course many enlightened minds often get accused of. And it's not really that there are supernatural powers, but the gifts of the spirit can often appear that way to the uninitiated. So there are a lot of people in history that have the ability for hands-on healing and all this sort of thing. And Ted had his own little gimmick and his thing that he would do. And tomorrow we're going to gather up in the healing room back here, and we're going to film it. There's going to be Vinka and Michelle and Dean and I, which is our little band of mighty companions. And we're going to film it so that it can be made available just amongst our Zoom meeting, not to be put into the public forum. So if people want to request it off you, Tina, you can send them the link for personal use. But the guys are not too keen to have their falling abouts and their thing, you know. So it's like, that's fine. They're not engaging in this in the same way that we are. So, so that action, it's important, and I kind of want to make this whole thing about it, but that action of dropping down, and for some people, it's like, for me, it was actually going up and forward. That was where I first experienced it. And then now I don't even know, when I open my mind now, there's not even a movement. It's like the door is just automatically open, or it's always open, never closed. So, and I don't know how to describe that either, but there used to be this very pronounced kind of like a click. And I remember my teacher Greta used to talk about that you could hear it in consciousness. You could hear this kind of ka-dunk, like something's dropped, something's like there's almost a sound, like an audible sound that your ears will pick up on. And it's not that it's an audible sound, but it's a vibratory shift, right? So we're listening to, let's say, the words that I'm speaking now, you're hearing within an audible wavelength of so many hertz to so many hertz. Outside of that wavelength, you have great difficulty hearing, if you can hear at all, right? A dog can hear much greater variety of wavelengths on the high end of the pitch, and an elephant or a what are those things in the sea? A whale can hear on the bottom end of the scale sounds that human beings, it would probably burst our heart if we could hear that sort of like depth of resonant frequency. But that's all within consciousness. When you slip into a little sort of like kadunk moment in your own mind, oh, there's Sharon. When you slip into that moment in your own mind, you're slipping down into a kind of mezzanine floor. It's the only way I can describe it. It's like a step, an actual step in your mind where you kind of like kadunk, put a footfall down, and you'll feel it, right? You'll feel it happen. You might even hear it in a kind of a frequency kind of a way. I don't know how to talk about the hearing of it. And but you'll definitely become aware of it. Right? It's something that, if you want to call it a doorway, I guess you could, or a portal, I guess you could call it that. But it's physical in a sense that mind has a mind to physical connection, where we seem to have this body controlled by the mind, right? And the mind controls it to do a set of physical maneuvers, whatever that it uses it for. But also in the mind, similarly, the mind has this other capacity to be used for other things, to be used for the greater good in a way where until you actually make the effort to engage with it, until you actually make the effort to apply it as a meditative discipline, you're going to be unaware of it. It just sort of sits there unused, back here in the pituitary gland or whatever of the brain, the mind, where it all links together as this kind of neural connection or whatever, this synapse thing and you go beyond memories, which is all that your thoughts are. They're just memories because this is a dream that's already over. You go beyond memories and beyond the thoughts, which are memories, into a place that is both at the same time, before your thoughts start and after your thoughts have finished. It's like a tube. You find yourself out of one end or the other of the tube. Right? So all of time and space exists within the length of this tunnel, let's say, or this tube, and we call it the alpha and the omega, and you start here at the year 1, whatever, and here we are in the year 2022, which is probably 10 trillion years from when it actually started. But all of that is contained within time and space. And then when you take that little step kadunk down into your mind through that meditative technique or that meditative practice, you're actually stepping just out of the end of the tube and you're having a peek. It's the only way I can describe it. You're like peeking out the end going, oh, what's out here? And you go, whoa, and then it's freaky out there because you've forgotten what it's all about. So you pull your head back into the safety and the comfort of temporal association, and you spend the next however long wondering what that was that happened. What happened in my mind there when I was meditating? Some guys won't even have the luxury of being able to question what happened in their mind because they're just ready for something else, and they'll be drawn out into a whole nother experience of self, right? Perhaps entering directly into light. It's the same thing that happens when you talk to people who've done a lot of really exotic psychotropic drugs, and they'll tell you that they weren't in their body, they were somewhere else, they were experiencing something else, that they were just the mind and all this sort of thing. But of course, that still is within the realm of consciousness because there's still an association with it in the mind. This ends all association in the mind. You can't talk about it. You can't describe it. There's nothing, there's no you in it. There's just this dropping down. It's like you're one with the sensation and part of the sensation. It's like trying to call it a sensation even is like I'm muddying the waters there. I should really just kind of leave it more clear. But so in that lesson, Anna, that you just read, right, and in the same lesson that Tina just read, that's the action of mind that we're looking for. A silence, a listening, a quietening of the mind, and a waiting. And abiding there and waiting with a willingness to be shown. Just waiting there for the sake of waiting is pointless. There has to be a willingness and a prayerful willingness, an open-hearted willingness to go beyond the place where you're waiting. Now, if you're fearful of that, it's not going to happen. If you're still fearful to give up the world, it's not going to happen. Nothing can be shown to you until you're ready for it and until it's not going to make you more fearful, because the whole point of the course is not to increase your fear, but merely to show you the fear that you actually exist in now and to help you deal with that so you can go beyond it. All right? It wouldn't be helpful if we made the fear more obvious. But because you're even unaware of the level of fear that you exist in on a day-to-day basis, at least we can point that out. At least you can figure that out for yourself and go, oh my God, I'm scared of heights. I'm scared of walking under apple trees. I'm scared of bloody this, that, and the other, and rats and rabbits and every little thing out there. And I'll just shut myself in my room and pretend the rest of the world doesn't exist until I die. Sharon, camera's on, please, darling. If you're there. Tina, I'll let you manage that. So in this meditation, which we'll do shortly, I want it to take 2 parts, or I'm going to present it in 2 parts, I should say. The first part is the idea of letting go of the world. Being willing to say yes, which is what we covered in the earliest part of this meeting. Being willing to say yes to whatever it is, knowing full well that that yes is probably going to lead us into fear. Okay. And in the second part, the willingness to be still in the face of perhaps fear or whatever it is that shows up and stay there regardless, right? Now, fear when countenanced, once you face a fear, it's no longer fearful. Once you're willing to look at it for what it is, because it's something you've made up yourself, you can dispel it just as easily. If I walk under this tree, an apple might land on my head and I'll get a concussion or whatever. It's an unreasonable fear, right? All fear is unreasonable. I had somebody once try to tell me, oh, there is reasonable and unreasonable fears. Like a reasonable fear would be of putting your hand on the hot plate. And it's like, well, it's not really a reasonable fear. I mean, you know it's going to burn. It's just an act of stupidity. You can't say that you're fearful of it. You already know the outcome. Fear only exists where you're facing an outcome that you're uncertain of. Everything else exists within potential. The potential to get the results of your own thinking. That all happens within time and space. This is outside of time and space. This is out of your body, out of the world. Sharon, do you have a camera, please? Turn it on. Or Amscray.
I left her a couple of messages. I'm waiting to hear back.
All right. Well, can you just cut that one out?
I think I can. Let's see.
Yeah. Sharon, leave the meeting, please, if you're not going to put your camera on. This is full participation. Thank you.
I just sent her. Oh, there it is.
Oh, there she is. Good. It's our only requirement, full participation. So the meditation, that section or that component of your mind training, in conjunction with prayer. So you have prayer, meditation, and then the discipline of actually doing the lessons or the study and all of that sort of thing. So the prayer, the mind training, and everything else all works together. It doesn't work together in the way of like a blueprint where you're building a house, you do the foundation, then you do this, and then you do that. Everybody's approaching it from a different angle. Everybody's working on one little bit of the jigsaw puzzle at a time. Eventually, once we all start to put the bits of our jigsaw puzzle together, we can all sort of laugh with each other thinking that we know what it is. It's like, oh, I'm starting to get enough of it together now that I'm starting to see what it's going to be when it's done, right? And you start, every time you try to put a piece in, whether it fits, doesn't fit, and whatever, every time you make the effort, make the attempt to try and put that piece in, you're learning. You're learning that it either fits or doesn't fit. You're learning either that it goes here or goes there. But it goes somewhere because nothing is given to you without the availability of an increase in light in you, without the availability of you being able to recognize an increase in light in you. Not that it's an increase per se, but that your awareness of it becomes more obvious or more apparent. So we put the pieces together in the jigsaw puzzle of life. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I start to see something there. Once you see a part of the picture, your consciousness automatically has a shift because what's been previously unknown is now known. Even if it's not the whole picture, even if it's just a holy instant, a little glimpse, a tiny little moment of aha. Right? It becomes incredibly powerful, which is the same thing as that little kadunk moment in your mind when you meditate and you drop down into that lower level and Jesus says to you, push or reach out or reach for that experience, reach for that happening. It becomes an incredibly powerful thing and it adds to the treasure house. It adds to the witnessing in your own mind of what it is you're about because it's actually experiential rather than just a book. Rather than just concepts, rather than just me talking or someone else talking or you watching a video or any of that stuff, right? Eventually, all of that just falls away. Me talking, reading the book, everything. There's no teacher but yourself, your own internal self, your own internal teacher. But it's like the tendency to want to become dependent externally is so strong that you'll deny that until finally you've got no choice but to accept it. And if you leave it until the last moment, it's going to be incredibly painful. And if you're willing to at least be willing to accept it now, then changes can occur in your own thinking that will begin to show you the truth of the matter. And you'll be like, oh, I see. I'm doing this to myself. It's like then you put the dunce hat on. Remember that session we passed around the dunce hat? This is dunce class, 365 lessons for dummies. So, welcome to the class. And the biggest dunce in the class is the teacher of the class. It's funny stuff. But still, somebody's got to be the teacher. There's got to be someone that closes the gate after everybody else has gone through. What's that old saying? It's better to be a street sweeper in heaven than a ruler in hell, than the emperor in hell, something like that. So, Doug, could you read lesson 32, please? The full lesson.
I have invented the world I see. Today, we are continuing to develop the theme of cause and effect. You are not the victim of the world you see because you invented it. You can give it up as easily as you made it up. You will see it or not see it as you wish. While you want it, you will see it. When you no longer want it, it will not be there for you to see. The idea for today, like the preceding ones, applies to your inner and outer worlds, which are actually the same. However, since you see them as different, the practice periods today will again include two phases, one involving the world you see outside you, the other, the world in your mind. In today's exercises, try to introduce the thought that both are in your imagination. Again, we will begin the practice periods for the morning and evening by repeating the idea for today 2 or 3 times while looking around at the world you see outside yourself. Then close your eyes and look around your inner world. Try to treat them both as equally as possible. Repeat the idea for today unhurriedly, as often as you wish, as you watch the images of your imagination, images your imagination presents to your awareness. For the 2 longer practice periods, 3 to 5 minutes are recommended, with not less than 3 required. More than 5 can be utilized if you find the exercise restful. To facilitate this, select a time when few distractions are anticipated and when you yourself feel reasonably ready. These exercises are also to be continued during the day as often as possible. The shorter applications consists of repeating the idea slowly as you survey either your inner or outer world. It doesn't matter which you choose. The idea for today should also be applied immediately to any situation that may distress you. Apply the idea by telling yourself, I have invented this situation as I see it.
All right, so we'll start our meditation there. Close your eyes.